Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Azuka here, bringing to you another update for Conqueror's Blade, published by Porus Interactive. This is a PTR update. So we have a preface. This will be a small little bit, and it will explain some of their thoughts when deciding to do these changes. Low star units have long struggled to perform effectively on high star battlefields, significantly limiting both strategic diversity and tactical depth. With this round of mastery and leadership adjustment, we aim to take the first step towards expanding viable unit choices across the battlefield. Our plans begin with 2-star and 3-star units. For each of these lower star units, we try to provide a scenario where their strength can be maximized. When warlords deploy them strategically in the right situations, they will reap significant rewards, turning the tide and achieving victory against stronger foes. Currently, low-star units face two major issues. First, many of them suffer from outdated mechanics and underwhelming base stats. We will address this through targeted balance and mastery adjustments guided by real-time battlefield performance data. This should help most low-star units meet the strength threshold of high-star battles. Second, under the influence of leadership reduction doctrines, the leadership cost efficiency of 3-star units is only about 50% that of some 4 or 5-star units. We are actively analyzing data to redefine the leadership cost of low-star units, ensuring that when used strategically, they can trade favorably against higher cost enemy units. Looking ahead, we will also rework particularly underperforming masteries and adjust weaker 4 and 5-star units, ensuring every point of leadership spent delivers its intended value. I like what they're thinking. I don't like how they're doing it. I don't like masteries and I don't like the leadership adjustment. Masteries are just another wall progression threshold. Newer players are going to suffer. Veterans don't even care. Leadership adjustment should not be done in a way that you can do this. Sorry. Let me just put it this way. I don't like different leaderships for different units. For I don't like having units have different leadership, especially when they're from the same tier. To me, leadership should be standardized as a form of categorization. It should follow rules that are set by the tiers. If it's a 3-star unit, it should have a set amount of it should cost a set unit leadership, have a set strength so that you can equate it to every other tier 3 unit. This way that the entirety of the tier 3 can be balanced all at once relative strength to its tier. That way, you're consistently getting a good, consistent performance out of everyone. The only problem then is kind of accentuating pros and cons between tiers, which are harder to balance because they're at different power scales. You have some units that can hit above weight, you can have some units that don't. That's fine. What I mean by that is you can have you can have tier 3 units that have really high armor penetration, but when they're against low tier units, it doesn't matter because their armor is dog. Musket units, they perform really terribly against low star units, but against higher star units, they all of a sudden become really hyper efficient because they have high armor penetration. That's why that's why in when we're talking about tiers and stuff, that should be relative to the tiers. That way, you can mediate between tiers as a whole instead of particular units. And you get problems when you start having outliers and you don't balance those outliers. Case in point, tier 4 and 5, we have plenty of tier 4s and 5s, which are, well, sorry, we have plenty of tier 4s, which are basically tier 5 units. They're basically meta, and they're basically way too strong for what they are. But we still have tier 5 units who are way too strong because they're the best, and it's really dumb because it's just like nothing below them can deal with them. You need something equal to them. So anything that can deal with the top is it was already at the top. Continuing on. I don't want to bend ranting. I've actually re-recorded 4 times because I ranted too much. Quarterliers. Node 1, armor piercing penetration plus 100. Node 2, piercing damage plus 50. Node 3, piercing armor penetration plus 100. Node 4, piercing damage plus 50. Node 5, charging speed plus 20%. Damage increase in all stages plus 10%. Um, what that refers to, I believe, is probably the long distance charge or the charges trait, which increases speed and damage by 20% every 0.5 seconds, I believe. So I believe they're increasing the damage portion of that, so it's 20% plus 30% damage. So you're going to get a total of 60% speed plus 90% damage. I think. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. But anyway, node 6, unit head count plus 1. Node 7, damage to infantry unit plus 300. Node 8, at the end of a charge, or when an attack command is issued during a charge, the unit unleashes a forward armor breaking impact that deals 200 damage. If blocked, it puts the enemy into a block broken state. There are two concerning things: instant block break and armor breaking impact. So does it have a defense down debuff? Or it's just a mistranslation, and when it says armor breaking, it actually refers to the armor pierced, which is indirectly referring to the block broken, sorry, not indirectly, which is directly referring to the block broken status. So that's a translation issue. Other than that, I can see where they're going with Corteliers, adding an additional attack outside of charge. So it being after charge, there are two things that I think are very important, is whether or not you can X them and they'll still do the attack. And if they get stopped, will they still be able to deal the attack? If Xing them cancels the attack, that's really bad. If they get CC'd and don't deal the attack, that's good. Only thing is that Corteliers are really easy to kill outside of the charge state, so you basically always want to be charged. Other thing is that if you always want to be charging, what's the point of having an after effect? Because if anything doesn't die from your first charge, not charging again is just more efficient than running through, especially since they'll have like a 3 second cooldown when you have like 20 second when you have doctrines on them. So I don't understand. I I understand where they're going. I don't understand why they did it because just not it doesn't make sense unless this attack is more effective than the charge itself. Or it's a fail safe for when the charge fails. That means they either get stopped or someone accidentally cancels the charge. But yeah, Cudgel Monks. Mastery. Node 1, health plus 420. Node 2, blunt damage plus 80. Node 3, health plus 450. Node 4, blunt damage plus 80. Node 5, each attack increases blunt damage by 5, stacking up to 10 times. Node 6, head count plus 2. Node 7, head count plus 2. Node 8, attack will deal at least 30% damage to units. Cudgel Monks is an undersized special unit, meaning it has 18 models base. Right now, its performance is half that of the best, which is condottieri and prefecture guards. The easiest way to get Cudgel Monks at the same level is to give them a +1 to all of their attacks. The current problem of Cudgel Monks is that they're undersized and they're not even equal on a per model basis. They have a cool passive. They have a good passive, reduces armor and movement speed by 6%, stacking up to 5. You either need to double their damage or increase their hit limit by 1. Giving them a conditional, and not to mention it stacks after 10 times, unlikely to actually get this to stack in a normal situation. If anything, I would have swapped these around. I would have increased the blunt damage by 10%, reduced the stacking to 5. But if I was also being myself, I would have just give them a straight up 100% blunt damage increase and also given them the head count increase. I don't like attacks will deal at least 30% damage to units. That minimum damage threshold is it defeats the purpose of high armor and high damage resistant unit. I would obviously fix those units or just make this unit deal more damage. It makes no sense why particularly units that reduces damage beyond the 70% mark have to all of a sudden be countered by cudgel monks. And it's really dumb as well because what you'll end up having is that units with high minimum damage thresholds be made into hyper damaged units because there's just no way of resisting high damage besides just having more health. So it's just another form of power creep by circumventing a lot of existing mechanics. I mean, like, there's other precedences of this happening as well. Yan Yudals have 65%, and that's in Veterancy node. That's also still an issue. Wuxing Pikeman. Node 1, movement speed plus 10%. Node 2, piercing damage plus 100. Node 3, movement speed plus 10%. Node 4, piercing damage plus 100. Node 5, fiery blast, attack range and damage increased by 20%. Easier to ignite enemies. Node 5, damage to infantry unit plus 300. Node 7, damage to shield unit plus 400. Node 8, attacks will deal at least 50% damage to units. Again, I don't like this node. I don't like circumventing existing mechanics this way. I can understand why they would buff Fiery Blast, considering that the other attack, I think like a scatter shot or something, or pellet shot, or fire pellets. I forget. I forget the name of the skill. I can understand if that one was just better, but it's just it still hurts me that they would prefer that they only buffed one of the two skills. I think both of them should have been considered, considering that you can have Wishing Pikeman top or bottom line, and one focuses on one and the other one focuses on the other. To me, Wishing Pikeman is also another issue. Sorry, it's a different issue with Wishing Pikeman. They're an issue of just not surviving. They're really easy to kill. I think they only have 8,000 health. Their model count is actually not particularly high. I think it starts out with 32. I think it gets to 36, but considering like a lot of the tier 3s are in the 30 zone or around 30 zone, 36 models is not particularly large. Not particularly large. It is still 20% larger than like most units, but they're not simply 20% weaker than most units. They're like okay. Their damage is much weaker, and logistically, it's not adequate. Like we're doing low 600s to even just tier threes, while tier threes are dealing like 3,000 damage to 2 units. I'm not exactly sure on the hit limits, but I believe it's the range is so low that you'll only hit like um 2 or 3 extra units. So correct me if I'm wrong, but these guys do have a high hit limit or a higher hit limit than 2, but they're so easy to kill that, well, they deal so little damage that it's just like it's not even worth to use them in most cases. But regardless, um, I, um, I, I do think that it would have been preferable if they increased the survivability, increasing the damage, especially giving them the minimum damage thing, is not the way I would want the game to go. More damage is always just going to cause the game to become to become faster, and I don't like the game becoming faster. I want it to be slower. I don't want to. I don't want to be. I don't want to be moving or just like positioning myself for like 20 minutes and only fighting for like less than a minute. Feathered Crossbowman, Mastery, Node 1, Movement Speed plus 10%, Node 2, Piercing Damage plus 70, Node 3, Movement Speed plus 10, Node 4, Piercing Damage plus 70, Node 5, Sudden Storms, Cooldown, negative, minus 6 seconds, Node 6, Damage to Polearm units plus 400, Node 7, Damage to Cavalry units plus 400, Node 8, each arrow during sudden storm deals an additional 150 block break damage. Okay, fine. Give them block break. At this point, they're low range and deals okay damage during sudden storm. Only problem is that like with the impact doctrine and during sudden storm, like during Sudden Storm, they can deal a lot of damage. They deal like 3 times more damage during Sudden Storm, and it puts them up there. It puts them above even Prefecture Archers during Arrow Rain. Or, no, I take that back. It puts them higher than default Prefecture Archers, but their range is not particularly long, so they're normally in danger most of the times. If anything, the The problem is that Sudden Storm's cooldown is really long for a very, very short damage window. Like, I think Sudden Storm only lasts for around about 5 seconds because you get shot, bang, 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 bang. You get the 4 shots out in like you get the 4 shots out in like 5 seconds. So your DPS is super, super, super high, but you have to wait 25 seconds for it to reset. Mind you, kills do reduce the cooldown, but it's just like a lot of times feather crossbowmen are not killing units. They're either hitting into shields, and if they do kill units, it's a really fast wash. I think the direction again is not how I would have done it. I can live with a lot of these changes. Feather crossbowmen are still a very strong unit in my eyes. I didn't think they needed a buff, considering that I would definitely be focusing on underperforming units that don't see the light of day. If we're talking about underperforming units, especially in the tier 3 range, Rattan Vipers, I would have buffed. Namcan Archers, I would have buffed. Demez Arbalist, I would have buffed. Not the Feather Crossbowmen. Feather Crossbowmen would probably be third last on my list. Now we have Outriders. Node 1, ammo plus 10%. Node 2, piercing damage plus 60. Node 3, ammo plus 20%. Node 4, piercing damage plus 60. Node 5, when throwing javelins at enemies, there is a 33% chance to throw an incendiary javelin. Node 6, damage to tower shield units plus 50. Node 7, damage to cavalry unit plus 400. Node 8, killing an enemy restores 2 ammo. Alright. I never like restoring ammo on enemy kill. That was stupid. I like the ammo restore on the Outriders. That's cool. I don't like them getting ammo when they kill a unit. They should just get ammo when they hit a unit with their number 2 ability. Again, certain type bonuses against certain types, absolutely hate. I want them to stop doing this, but they keep doing it. Really concerned about one thing about this, like extra fire damage, not really much of a problem. If it explodes, I have a big problem with that. There is no way this can be good if this 33% chance includes exploding javelins. Because, let's be honest, it's really, it's, I have PTSD from Outriders. During their time, and for a long time, they have been top tier, tier 3. Now, with masteries and stuff, been shoved down, shoved all the way down. The only way to counter Outriders is to use a ranged unit that just simply shoots more damage than they can. And that's easy to do because you just grab prefecture archers, shoot up an outrider. Doesn't mean the outrider is weak. Logistically, it's cost efficient because I can sacrifice an outrider to kill your prefectures. But if I can't get to your prefectures, I can't sacrifice my outriders. Well, if I can't get to your prefecture, I can't outrange your prefectures, to say. But I can use my extra tankiness to get on top of your prefectures and kill them with the outriders very easily. So outriders have a dynamic where they can use melee and range. Doubling down on the range part really hurts me, and I don't like how it leaves other aspects of them in the dust when the unit feels complete as it is, and it's already really strong. Also, I mean, killing an enemy restores 2 ammo defeats the purpose of their number 2 skill, and that just hurts me. Incendiary Archers. Node 1, piercing damage plus 60. Node 2, flaming arrows cooldown -2. Node 3, piercing damage plus 60. Node 5, flaming arrows cooldown -2 seconds. Node 4. Node 5 now is flaming arrows more likely to ignite fire resistant targets. That's, sure, whatever. On hit, it ignites enemies within a 1 meter radius. Ammo consumption for flaming arrow is increased by 50%. And we're going to get okay. Really quickly, I didn't have a problem with the Kev tools and their AoE burning effect. I only had a problem with the fact that the burning effect caused an additional CC, which just caused every unit to bug out. So you had the normal frightened effect, where there'd be a flame, and then you had an additionally long period of where the unit was uncontrollable. CC in itself is really, really, really bad to experience. But when you had not only the flamed effect, but also an additional flamed effect, which bugged out the unit, it just felt extra stupid. Now, that being said, I'm not exactly sure how big 1 meter radius this is, but this is a repeat of the Keb tools. So why did you get rid of it on the Keb tools if you were just going to reintroduce it with incendiary archers? That also being said, a 50% increase to the ammo consumption on fire arrows, which already consumes like 4 ammo. My goodness. My goodness. They'll only be able to use flaming arrows like twice at this rate. Node 6 flaming arrow burning damage plus 100. Sorry. Node 7 flaming arrow burning duration plus 1 second. Node 5 flaming arrow disables cavalry movement for 1 second when it hits a cavalry unit. Now, the fire effect in and of itself already causes a flamed, which CCs everything. Like everything that is affected by that CC will stop. This only can imply that it's an effect that is added on top. So what concerns me is this supposed to deal with cavalry who are CC immune? And what it means by disable cavalry movement, Yan Yudao's Unleash Dread technically is some kind of animation type skill. So the distance they travel is a set amount. They never travel further or shorter than their swing. Or maybe they do. I'm not entirely sure. So if they get hit by a flame arrow, does that mean when they swing, they just stand still? Ugh. Actually, Yanyanals do have a very varying range, don't they? A lot of times I get hit by that standing still, and they fling themselves so far sometimes. Sometimes I don't know. A lot of times I don't know. Demez Aquisiers. Node 1, piercing damage plus 50. Node 2, rate of fire plus 6%. Node 3, piercing damage plus 50. Node 4, rate of fire plus 6%. Node 5, learns skill suppressing fire, drastically increase reload speed to approximately 2.8 seconds, and fires continuously towards the target direction for 12 seconds. Node 6, damage to polearm units plus 400. Node 7, damage to cavalry units plus 400. Node 8, suppressing fire cooldown minus 5 seconds. Okay, only cool thing about this is learning the suppressing fire. Everything else is very generic. Suppressing fire, approximately 2.8 seconds would be a reduction. They shoot roughly around about once every 5 seconds, so that's a massive increase. That's a massive decrease, sorry, in reload. And I think even then, this would only make them just under, just under prefecture archer prefecture archer level, which is not good because they have shorter range, by the way. and also have higher range damage penalties. So that being said, that's still inadequate somehow. Demez Aquosiers still probably need more buffs. I'm wondering how long the suppressing fire cooldown is. If it's like 20 seconds and this -5, meaning that they can almost perpetually have suppressing fire up, is good. It makes no sense to like have it have a really long cooldown, considering that outside of suppressing fire, I feel like they're gonna be useless. Like generically, Demez Obelisks are bad. Like really bad. Like I think they're only slightly better than Demez Obelisk, and that's only slightly. So unless we have almost 100% uptime on suppressing fire, I don't think this mastery is adequate. So we'll see. Suppressing fire does seem like a really strong skill. And we have leadership adjustments. You can take a look at the adjustments on your own, but just a brief look at it. Um, I wouldn't have changed the rattan marksmen. The Vanguard archers probably got reduced too much. Probably would have pushed it to 160. Prefecture archers maybe wouldn't have pushed it down so much, but it makes sense that they're. I would have put them equal to Vanguard archers at the very least. 160 for both of them would have made sense. Not to mention like we also have incendiary archers getting a mastery. So even at 160, I probably will probably still have to be fearful of if the mastery goes through, because the mastery does look strong. Um, Zyculian Militia and Shirt Diners are both specials that are concerning because their actual effects are much greater than their leadership would imply. But like as a whole, um, Shirt Diners fine because no one really thinks about the healing effect too much. Zyculian Militia, their damage is inadequate. They only realistically are only used for the um, frightened effect, on large scale. So against units that are fire resistance or against units that are CC immune, Zyculia Militia are pretty much useless. The Reta Pistoliers, I would not have changed. 190 is adequate for them. They're way, 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 way too strong. Um, for tier three, for tier three, they're way, way, way too strong. Prefecture guards, along with condottierities, are definitely cut above the rest, but it's included in their mastery. So I'm just wondering whether or not they want to push every tier three down on their base level, and then when their mastery comes in, push all of the tier threes to the same level. So I'm wondering whether or not that's happening. But that is all for this PTR update. Tell me what you guys think. I definitely I definitely want to believe that their intentions are good, but it's disappointing how everything works out. I don't I don't feel good after reading these changes or these masteries and leadership adjustments. I want to say as well, the leadership changes are getting out of hand. I I played during a time where tier 5s used to cost 350. They have reduced the cost down to high level tier 4s. We now have tier 4s almost almost hitting the 200 mark, which will break the top of the tier 3s. And the tier 3s after this, I mean, excluding the outliers, will now break the tier 2 mark. The highest tier 2 cost was 145. I'm pretty sure the highest tier 3 cost was 200. And that was Demez Arbalest. I mean, Demez Arquebusiers. And Demez Arquebusiers are not even that good. We also had the Imperial Arquebusiers costing 270. So it's a very different game. Very different costs and leaderships. And I want to say that, like, I really hate the leadership adjustments because it seems very arbitrary at the same time. Like, how do they come to these rationalization? And not to mention, like, on such a massive scale, like, a lot of these numbers don't make sense when you really think about it. When you really think about it. Because there are definitely units that underperform way more than what you think. Like, Namcan archers being similar in cost to incendiary archers is just widely hilarious. Not to mention, rattan marksmen and incendiary archers being on the same level makes sense. But like a 5 leadership difference between those two and Namcan archers, like you also have rattan vipers that shouldn't shouldn't even be in tier 3 according to their actual performance. Even though they have a really strong poison effect, it's just like everything else about it just is just piss poor. It should be a tier 2 and cost like 100. Shirt diners and Lycanian militia are also specials, and their value is very hard to calculate. So, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Tell me what you guys think about these changes and whether or not you think it will change anything. Because tier 3 is so is so weak in comparison to like tier 5 and tier 4s. I don't even think they're even considered in in a viable state when we're like talking about tier 5s and stuff. You would never have a scenario where a bunch of tier 3s would win against a bunch of tier 5s. And that is rightfully so. I mean, given equal numbers and skill. But it it's it stands to reason that the developers want a strange balance where you can get value out of these units if you play them really scummy like. And fine. That you can do that with any ranged unit and get hundreds of kills. Like I could probably run around with archer militias, and if the enemy doesn't kill them, I could probably get a couple. I could probably get my leadership value and kill. I've done it before actually. I think the highest score I got was like 150 with archer militias, and that was hilarious. Anyway, um, please, please, if you guys have any thoughts, do send them to the developers. Tell them what you think, because it is a critical time to send feedback and tell them the direction you want, because this is not the direction I want. I want more changes to the base. I want masteries to be removed. I want mastery to be baked into the unit. I want leadership to be adjusted in a standard manner, not a anything manner. This to me is just arbitrary adjustments that have no in my eyes, it has no correlation to the actual strength of the unit relative to the leadership. Because we're talking about performance differences in magnitudes to me. I'm not going to say like there's only a slight difference between units. I'm going to be like I could literally have two of these units and I could beat them up with a single one of my units. Like two cudgel monks versus one condottieri. I'd beat them up with the condottieri. So why is the cost 135 against my 160 when I could beat up two whole units of cudgel monks? But yeah, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. On that, my name is Atsukai. Have a nice day. Bye for now.